Welcome to Sweet Bee's Cookie Creations. Today you'll be learning my royal icing recipe. You can find my recipe on my website, but we'll be going through it today and going through my tips and tricks on what I've learned from my mistakes over the years. So first you have your meringue powder. You'll use warm water, and you want to use warm water because if you use cold water it will create more bubbles in your frosting. You also have corn syrup, and that is going to give you that nice sheen on your cookies. If not, you'll get more of the matte look. So it's really more of a preference of what you want your final product to look like. I used almond extract today. It's my favorite, but you can use whatever flavoring you like. And you have some powdered sugar. So first we'll go through how to make my royal icing, and then we'll go through how to make the two different consistencies that you'll need to make your royal icing cookies. So let's get started. First, you grab your meringue powder. You'll go ahead and put all of that in your bowl. Next, you'll grab your warm water. Put it right in. You'll need a whisk for this, and you'll want to mix the ingredients together until it's frothy, but you don't want to overmix it because the more that you mix it, the more bubbles that you add into it, the more air that you add into it, and you'll get bubbles in your frosting when you're decorating. Just go ahead and incorporate those ingredients together. Till it's frothy and it kind of raises at the end. So you can use whatever flavoring you like. I've used peppermint, maple, but my favorite is almond extract. It's my customer's favorite, it's my family and friends' favorite flavoring for this royal icing. Then you'll need a spatula for this. This is the corn syrup, and again, you want to use this if you want that nice shine to your cookies. Then you'll go ahead and whisk those ingredients together as well. It takes just an extra second with that corn syrup because it's so sticky. Okay, then you'll just want to, again, get that nice froth where it just raises a little bit after you whisk. So next you'll add in your powdered sugar. Just slowly add this to it. Then you'll use another spatula. Okay, so you'll want to go ahead and incorporate this. You don't want to stir it too fast because again, it will add extra air. And extra air with royal icing is your enemy. So you'll just want to add this slowly, incorporate it just enough so that your powdered sugar is not going to fly everywhere when you mix it together. So once you're done mixing by hand, you'll want to use a stand mixer to do the rest. You don't want to use a hand mixer because you can mix it inconsistently, and it again can add more air to your frosting. So this part you'll want to use a timer for sure. You'll put it on level 4 for 3 minutes. Okay, let's see how we did. So this icing is going to be very thick. Think about the frosting that you use for gingerbread houses. This is actually the frosting that I use for my kids' gingerbread houses. It's very thick, dries quickly, and it sticks together really hard. We don't want to keep it at this consistency to do cookie decorating. We want it to be thinner. It's going to be into 2 different consistencies for what we'll be doing. To store this icing, you'll want to put it in an airtight container, and it can last at room temperature up to 2 weeks. When you pick the frosting up, it's really not going to move very much. That's how thick it is. Now that you've made your royal icing, we're going to be going through the 2 consistencies that we'll be using for cookie decorating. The first consistency is piping, and this is going to be the outline of all of your cookies that acts as a barricade for your flooding. The second consistency is flooding, And this is going to be a much looser consistency than piping, and it's going to fill your cookie and create those beautiful designs. So for this part, if you're just making it for friends and family, you really can eyeball it. But if you're using it for customers and you don't want to waste any of your frosting, you'll want to measure it out. To use my scale, I put it to 0 fluid ounces. Do that after you put the bowl on the scale to make sure that you're correctly measuring out your frosting. For regular sized cookies, it takes about 0.5 fluid ounces of flooding consistency. For a large cookie, it takes about 1 fluid ounce to fill the cookie. We're going to start with our piping consistency. I use about 2 fluid ounces for that. Okay, so with this frosting, you'll see that when you pull it up, it really keeps its form. That's not what you want for piping consistency because it will be really hard to push out of your bag. On a side note, make sure that you do cover your frosting in between because it will dry very quickly and then your frosting will be wasted and we'll have to start all over again. You'll want to make sure again that there is warm water in your spray bottle. If you use cold water, it will create more air bubbles in your final product. So you'll go ahead, add a little at a time. Don't overdo it. Be really patient with it. And you'll just incorporate that water into it. The consistency that you're going for is about the consistency of toothpaste. You don't want to overmix this because it will add extra air and create those bubbles. Okay, so now when you pull your spoon or your spatula away, it's a little more pliable and you can work with that. It does create those peaks, but it will be easier to pipe your cookies. You'll want to use frosting bags. You can find these at your local baking supply store. Go ahead and just roll that bag down. Put the frosting right in. Okay. So now go ahead and squeeze your frosting down. But to get rid of some of those air bubbles that you may have put in there, go ahead and give it a little spin. It will put your frosting to the end of your bag and it will also get rid of some of those air bubbles. I sometimes forget which bag is my piping and which is my flooding, so I like to color code them. You can use the fancy bag fasteners. I, a lot of times, just use little rubber bands. So I like to color code mine. Going to use pink for my piping. Okay, and there you have it, your piping frosting. You're halfway there. Next, we're going to work on that flooding frosting. Again, make sure that your scale is at 0. For most of the bags that I find, about 10 fluid ounces will fill the bag. If you're using average size cookies, that will fill about 20 cookies because it takes 0.5 fluid ounces to fill a regular sized cookie. And again, we have that really thick consistency. That's just not gonna work for our flooding. You make sure that your spray bottle water is still warm. And again, add a little bit at a time. It's much, much easier to thin out frosting than to thicken it. If you over thin it out, it will go right up and over your piping frosting and spill all over your counter, and it can be really, really frustrating. If you do thin it out a little too much, which honestly, it's happened to me before, you just add some powdered sugar back in there and it will thicken it up a little bit. And you want to do this only by hand. You do not want to mix your consistencies in a KitchenAid because it will add that extra air that you don't want in your final product. When I say extra air, you will get little bubbles, and you can kind of see some little bubbles in here like that. You can get little bubbles on your cookies, and they can pop when they dry and cause craters. And it can just ruin all of your hard work. I like to use a method, either the 10-second method or the 15-second method. It really depends on your skill level. If you're a beginner at this is new for you, you'll want the 15-second method. And what I mean by that is when you lift your frosting up and you kind of drizzle it on there, you want it to reincorporate itself back into the frosting in 15 seconds. So I'll show you. So you kind of want to drizzle it on there and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's not quite that consistency, so we're gonna add a little more water. Be patient with yourself. This really takes time to master, but the more you do it, the more that you'll see what it looks like each time. Okay, so you'll want to do this. This consistency is about the consistency of conditioner when it comes out. So you'll want to do it again. Kind of drizzle it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that line right there, it took 15 seconds to reincorporate itself into the frosting. If you're a beginner, again, start there. Go ahead and bag up your frosting. If you see any bubbles in here, like here's a big one, right here, go ahead and just pop them, because you want to do it now before you bag it up. Again, grab your piping bag. This one is much looser, as you can see, which you want for your flooding. If you are adding color to your frosting, you'll want to add the color before you bag. I like to use gel coloring, which you can again find at your local bakery supply store. In Utah, I like to get mine from Kitchen Needs or Orson Giggy. And again, you want to take that top of your frosting bag, you want to spin it around for a little bit, get rid of some of those bubbles. And there you have it. Again, I color code it. I like to organize, and sometimes I'm a bit forgetful about which is which. So my flooding bag is yellow. So when you're going through and you have 5 or 6 colors or 10 colors, whatever you're doing that day, it's easier to remember which is the piping and which is the flooding. Then you don't have to guess and test which one is which. And that's how you make royal icing. Thanks so much for joining me. Please like and subscribe my YouTube channel, as well as visit my website for announcements and classes that can help you in increasing your cookie decorating skills if you're making them for friends or family or creating your own business.